So if you were to look at the treatment guidelines, the final treatment guideline to completely end PMDD is to remove the ovaries. It's kind of the last resort if none of the other treatments work.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, a free, safe space for people to share and learn from others' experiences with mental health and addictions. I'm Todd Rennebaum, suicide attempt survivor and a recovering substance abuser. And happy holidays, happy new year, and welcome. This is another throwback show. This one originally aired in July of 2021. It's with Sandi, MacDonald. And this is a subject matter that not a lot of people talk about. It's called PMDD, or premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is a mental health or mental illness issue that only affects women. So if you're a woman or you know a woman, this episode would be a good one to listen to. Lots of women are misdiagnosed with bipolar or some other, illnesses, I guess, when in fact they have PMDD. A lot of it is not diagnosed at all, and it's a fascinating thing. So this episode is with Sandi MacDonald, and it's all about that, and she is an expert at this, so that's cool. Before we get into the episode, though, I just want to remind everyone that there is a contest, I guess, of sorts going on right now. You could win $25, a gift card from Co-op. I don't think American listeners, I don't know if you have co-ops down there, but if you do, that's great. Either way, you should be doing this anyhow. But all you have to do is rate and review the podcast, take a screenshot of that, and email it to bunnyhugspodcast@gmail.com. And at the end of January, I will draw 4 names, and you'll win a $25 gift card from Co-op. And starting January 4th, on Thursdays, every Thursday after that, there'll be a new episode of Mental Health Headline Hot Takes with Nick and Todd. That's Nick from Eyes Wide Open podcast. He was also on Love is Blind Season 2. Him and I are co-hosting a new episode, I guess. It's got its own name and stuff, but it's still going to be on the Bunny Hugs and Mental Health libraries, or whatever you call it, platforms, I guess. And then, of course, Saturdays will be the regular episode that I do with special guests who talk about their experiences and stuff. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. But anyway, for now, strap in, get ready to learn a little something about PMDD from my friend Sandi. So without further ado, I give you Sandi MacDonald. Can you explain what PMDD is and how it affects mental health in women?
Yes, sure. So PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, it is a cyclical hormone-based mood disorder with symptoms rising during the premenstrual or the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle, and it tends to subside within the first few days of menstruation. Now, that can vary from person to person, obviously, but usually when the person starts to bleed, it's that their symptoms start to ease up somewhat. It is not a hormonal imbalance, which is what some people tend to think that it is. It is more the estrogen, progesterone, the natural rise and fall, and how it affects the brain. So it's basically a severe negative reaction in the brain to the rise and fall of the hormones. It's a suspected cellular disorder in the brain, so symptoms can worsen over time and also worsen around reproductive events, sometimes stress. And can certainly exacerbate as you go on post-pregnancy or birth of a child, miscarriage, into perimenopause, and just different aspects across the lifespan. So,
How does it affect women mentally? Like, how is it a mental health issue?
Mental health issue.
Or is it considered a mental health issue? Like,
yes.
Okay.
So There's still a lot of research being done as to where it fits into all the different criterias. The World Health Organization in 2019 recognized PMDD as a physical and mental disorder. So currently, it is mainly, mainstream. It is in the DSM-5, so the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders. It has been in there since 2013, and so it's been kind of widely known more as a mental health issue because of that. However, there is a lot more to it than that, but they're still doing a lot of studies to see the physical and other causes as well, not just the mental health issues. So there's really a lot to it. And because it is, somewhat of a little known disorder, which it really still to this day blows my mind. That's a little known disorder because 1 in 20 assigned female at birth individuals suffer from premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So it surprises me that, we're still learning so much about it. But the exciting news is that there's a lot of new studies coming up, including one that we are actually at the IAPMD taking part in right now to kind of push this movement forward and try to find more studies and more, what is going on with the body to see what causes these changes and what causes this disorder. Trying to find something good on mental health. Sorry, I ramble on. I'm glad you can edit.
No, that's perfect.
I'm really glad you can edit.
I'm leaving this part in, by the way. So some of the symptoms is like depression, anxiety, brain fog.
Yeah, so there's many symptoms of PMDD can include mood and emotional changes such as mood swings, sudden feelings of sadness or tearfulness, increased sensitivity to rejection, irritability, anger, interpersonal conflict, depressed mood, feelings of hopelessness, feeling worthless or guilty, anxiety, tension, or feelings of being keyed up or on edge, and a decrease in usual activities such as work, school, hobbies, etc. Some people may have a lot of brain fog, difficulty concentrating or focusing or thinking, tiredness, slow energy, changes in appetite. Some people may start binge eating, overeating, or undereating, hypersomnia or insomnia. Feelings of being overwhelmed or out of control sometimes. Physical symptoms can also be breast tenderness, swelling, joint and muscle pain, bloating, weight gain. Usually, in order to get a diagnosis, they ask for the presence of at least 5 of these symptoms to be, and one of them usually being a core emotional symptom. To go along with it. So yeah, it seems a lot, like that. I know that's a lot. It seems like a lot of symptoms, but I think the one that is the most concerning that we're really trying to talk about now is there's a statistic that came out that approximately 30% of individuals that suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder have suicidal ideation or have made an attempt on their own life. And obviously a small percentage of those have succeeded. So for us, that's kind of one of the areas that we try to focus on with peer support and furthering studies. We have a study going on through our clinical advisory lead. She's doing a study it's Dr. Tori Eisenlohr-Mowell, and she's doing a study on suicidality in the menstrual cycle. So we're really trying to continue to push the studies forward because there obviously needs to be so much more studying going on so we can figure out how to deal with this issue.
So what are some of the kind of the treatments, I guess, for PMDD? Is there medication or is there?
Yeah, there is. Yes, there is. There's a lot of different treatment options. The biggest issue is it's kind of a no one size fits all treatment for people. Obviously, everybody is very chemically different and culturally different. So different things are going to work for different people. Some people find help with SSRIs and other antidepressants. Some people find help with birth control pills. And then we have other patients that have come to us and said, birth control pills exacerbated their symptoms and made them feel worse. So it's really individual based, but we're actually still continuing to work on global treatment guidelines. And the first line of treatment would be an SSRI treatment, and obviously, some form of therapy. A lot of people find that there are supplements that help, such as magnesium, vitamin B complex or B6. And there's a few other ones that we also have listed on the website that many people have found very helpful. But again, different things definitely work for different people.
Mm-hmm. I've been doing a bit of research and talked to a couple friends that have been diagnosed with this. They're the reason why I even heard of this, actually. And my one friend, she takes Claritin. It's like an inflammation, she said, I don't know if it's in the brain or something, when the hormones and...
Well, and interestingly enough, that's one of the topics that has been coming up quite a bit lately within our peer support groups. A lot of people are talking about, the inflammation connection, and some people have tried taking, again, there's no clinical evidence that proves or shows that there is a benefit of any kind of antihistamine, but there are people that have found antihistamines such as Claritin, Reactin, and those over-the-counter medications. Some people have found them very helpful and have helped with some of their symptoms, such as itchiness, and some people get a rash in their premenstrual phase and different symptoms like that. So some people have had some benefit and have been talking a lot about it lately of how those have been helpful.
Mm-hmm. Something else I've read and heard about was how it's very much misdiagnosed, because a lot of doctors don't even know about this.
Absolutely.
And it's easy for them to, do a hormone test, and the hormone levels are normal, which is, like you were saying before, it's not a hormone imbalance. It's actually how your brain processes the hormones. So then They get misdiagnosed as bipolar because it's, you're up and you're down and you're up and you're down every few weeks or whatever. So
Exactly. And that's very common. The majority of patients that have come to us seeking any kind of support or treatment have either been diagnosed bipolar or borderline personality disorder, or they've had their medical practitioners, that the first thing that they've talked to them about is usually bipolar disorder, because there is a lot of commonalities between the two, but it's still not the same. Personally, myself, I had an incident where I was seeking out help when I was in a bad way with my PMDD symptoms in my 30s, and the doctor wanted to diagnose me bipolar, and I went through all the the bipolar medications and different med trials and on and on and on, and those things still didn't work. And so with tracking, which I always talk to patients and tell people, like, track your symptoms, because that's the only way you're going to get an actual true diagnosis. And through tracking, I just showed that, I am not having the ups and downs periodically or all the time. I'm having them monthly around my menstrual cycle. So, it started to make more sense when I started doing more investigating into PMDD and that avenue instead of the bipolar avenue. But it's very, very common. We have probably the majority of patients that have come to us have either been, the first thing that the doctor has mentioned is bipolar disorder, or, something along those lines. So again, not anybody's fault. It's just, little is known, and it hasn't been overstudied. And thankfully, there's a lot more being done, and hopefully we'll be able to not have misdiagnosis continue to happen as long as we keep pushing things forward.
Mm-hmm. Because is it circumstantial that more women are diagnosed with bipolar than men, or is it, is there a connection there between PMDD and misdiagnosis and stuff? And it's like, it really got me kind of concerned, I was like, oh my God, like, how many of these women are on bipolar meds? And
exactly.
I mean, the numbers could be, you said 1 in 20, but it could be 1 in 10 for all you know.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, we could go on forever talking about the medical system and whatever, on and on and on. But the reality is you do only get, a short period of time with a clinician. And when you present your symptoms, when you look at the bipolar symptoms and you look at the PMDD symptoms, there are a lot of similarities. So you could definitely see how the mistake would be made, and how, a doctor's first line of treatment is obviously going to be possible bipolar medication. So, it makes sense. But again, hopefully it won't always be that way. I think that's the biggest frustration of the majority of patients we see that we speak to is, they're frustrated with doctors and misdiagnosis and such little is known about the disorder.
Right. So you suggest like maybe this isn't random, your ups and downs, to really track your symptoms and your cycle. This is something you would tell someone who's maybe suspecting their bipolar meds aren't working, or...
Yes, absolutely. The first thing we always tell people at IAPMD via the website, via our peer support program, et cetera, is we always talk to people about tracking first. Doctors usually like to see about 3 cycles and check all the symptoms over 3 cycles before they can give you an appropriate diagnosis. So when you're tracking, there's tracking apps out there. There's printable app papers that you can get off of the website, www.iapmd.org. We have a tracking app that we collaborate with called the PMDD app, which is a great app to be able to track your daily symptoms and do daily ratings and on and on and on. And that's the best way to get a genuine diagnosis of PMDD and be able to see, you can keep the symptoms and the tracking. You can keep tracking, and you can also track when you do start to do treatments as well, and see how things start to work, and keep tracking that along as well. So it's we always push that first. Definitely track.
And so, if you are diagnosed with it, something my friend told me is she actually schedules her life around her cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah. You maybe want to talk about that a bit?
Oh, yes. Yeah, no, another very common thing. And I know we hear that every day as well, as people do. They basically, if you know that you have something big coming up, like we've heard stories of people planning their weddings around their cycle, planning doctor's appointments, exams, people with calendars up in their house with sticky notes on it. And they're watching to see when the worst phase of their month is going to be, because they know not to plan anything important around that time. I've done it myself as well. So yeah, it's again something that we hear from thousands of individuals that come to us. Same thing, planning their life around their cycle.
You are a co-founder of the IAPMD. How'd you get involved in actually creating a whole organization, based on premenstrual disorders?
Sure. So for me, I lived in, small province of Nova Scotia, where we don't know a whole lot about it, and was going through the whole trying to figure out a diagnosis, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, and started doing some of my own investigating, and started Googling, really, to be honest. Then as I started looking into like PMS, and realized that there was a severe form called PMDD, and was like, this, as I read about it, I was like, this is totally making sense. This sounds exactly like me. So I just took a chance and started looking for people on Facebook, because Facebook kind of that was around 2013. So Facebook was kind of becoming a thing then, and started reaching out and Googling like PMDD, PMS, stuff like that. And I actually found a Facebook group of PMDD, and I was like, oh, wow, look at this. And in the group, I joined the group. I met a couple of women that were also sufferers, and they were, newer moms. And we just started talking, and it was like we had this small tribe of people talking about the exact same, we almost sounded the same. And it was like, wow, total, mind boggling, really. And then so we connected and just kept talking. And myself and Amanda Lafleur is my co-founder, and she was instrumental in starting the nonprofit process. My focus was more on peer support, but she is very gifted at web design and paperwork and all kinds of good stuff. So between the two of us, we just we had a really good connection, and we kind of both had the focus of wanting to do something because we felt that nobody was doing anything. And so in 2013, Amanda registered the organization as the National Association for Premenstrual Dysphoric Disorder. And we created our first board, which started in 2014, January of 2014. And we just kind of started growing from there. We just kept reaching out, kept trying between the two of us, like just, finding more people, applying for grants and applying for things, and started off as a very, very small, just a couple of people in a Facebook group, and grew into this organization, which is now global. We've had over 100 countries, people from over 100 countries come to the website seeking information. We have new organizations now popping up that are collaborating with us or utilizing our website and our services. We have doctors and a clinical advisory board, which is absolutely amazing, is expanding all the time and has members from all over the globe, from as far away as Australia. So it's been brilliant seeing the growth, and it's funny because people tend to think that we're this humongous organization, but we are a real tiny organization. We're volunteers, voluntary led. We do have some independent contractors that we tap services of, but we do not have any permanent part-time or full-time staff. We are all mainly volunteer based. So it's been an amazing ride. I didn't expect to turn into this when I started volunteering my time in 2013, but it's been quite amazing, the growth. And this year, actually, we got our first major grant from an organization in the United States that funds patient-centered research outcomes. And we have our the first ever global roundtable taking place July 16th and 17th. So it's actually coming up soon. And as a part of that, we've taken patient voices and pushed it forward. So we're actually going to be coming to the table, a group of patients with a group of different clinicians. There's going to be naturopaths, many different stakeholders that are interested in PMDD, doctors, clinicians, again, from all around the globe. It's going to be a virtual thing. And we have some of the biggest names in the world that talk about or study PMDD. So it's very exciting and very almost mind-boggling. Some days I don't even know. I just sit here and I'm in awe of the things that we've done. And I can't even believe that we started off as this, just a couple of patients. And now I'm talking to the person that created the DSM diagnosis, so it's like, wow, this is crazy. So it's been,
and you're talking to me, so that's pretty cool.
And I'm talking with you, so This is huge. You're like one of my first official interviews or something. This is great.
Really?
Yeah, I do very few interviews. I don't do them often.
On purpose, or?
Yeah. Well, I get quite nervous, but I've done a couple of newspaper articles, but I haven't done many vocal. We have one of our other people. She's actually based out of the UK. She's way more vocal than I am, and she's our director of education and awareness, and she tends to do a lot of the talking. But we actually don't get a lot of people coming and asking. So when I saw you and I saw you were in Canada, I was like, oh, this one's mine, because I want to talk to another Canadian, because nobody in Canada talks about this disorder, and I find it, disheartening and frustrating, but it is getting better. There are patients across the country that are actually now getting actual diagnosis that, PMDD was not a diagnosis a few years ago. And now we have we have patients that have come to us and say, my doctor actually diagnosed me, or they will show us, we've had people come showing us their prescription, and it says right on it for PMDD or something like that. So it just gives that validation, because a lot of people tend to feel or think that they're crazy, and they aren't. This is real, and this is something that is happening to them.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. So today's episode of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health is brought to you by Co-op. I've been a member of my local co-op, Sherwood Co-op, for about 25 years, I think. My co-op is one of more than 150 local independent cooperative associations in more than 600 communities across Western Canada. Co-op is a different kind of business. It's not just a gas bar or a grocery store, although co-op is those things too. At its core, co-op is a group of people working together to help their neighbors and build their community. Co-op members are owners, and success is shared with everyone. Your co-op doesn't benefit one person or one corporation. Your co-op was built for everyone. Your co-op was built for your community. Learn more about co-op and find a location near you at coop.crs. One thing I've learned through my experience with mental health and addictions is you never know what you need to hear until you hear it. Make sure to rate and review on Apple and to tell as many people as you can about the podcast so others can hear something they need to hear from one of my guests. After all, this is a free mental health service, which is a rare thing, so why not share with as many people as you can? So really, the kind of the main mission, I guess, of your organization is information and just kind of spreading the word, and also peer support, or would you say, or is there more to it?
Yeah, education and awareness and peer support is probably our main programs. We offer online virtual peer support groups now, which is a newer thing that we just started offering this year. We have an online peer support program where people can text. And they can talk to a trained peer support provider. All of our peer support providers go through about 10 hours of PMDD specific training, and how to deal with different situations. All of our volunteers are either patients or past patients because they've gone through surgery to remove their ovaries and no longer suffer from PMDD. So all of our peer support providers have lived experience, obviously. So it's a very unique program. We offer a few different things through that. Support at iapmd.org if anybody wants to reach out and get in touch with a peer support provider or learn more about the peer support program. That's the best way to do so. Education and awareness is huge. Obviously, we're trying to raise our voices, and we're all trying to be strong, like I'm doing right now, because I do get really nervous when I talk, and
well, you're doing great.
Thank you. We're really trying to raise education, and our newest project, I guess, is, if you want to call it, we do have our clinical advisory board where we have some really amazing clinicians from around the world. That program is actually expanding, and there's going to be an educational component to that where they're going to be doing monthly webinars for doctors. Doctors can join that community, and that's all going to be all available through the website as well. If you go to the website, you can see there's a section for professionals, and there's diagnostic criteria there. There's all kinds of different things there that people can look at if they're a doctor, a naturopath, anybody that's a stakeholder in PMDD that wants to join that community, they can certainly do so. They already have some of the webinars started. The goal is really to educate professionals and clinicians on this disorder more, so that they do know more how to deal with the patients and how to diagnose appropriately and how to care for these patients appropriately.
Now, you mentioned, and I was going to bring this up about some women are actually removing their ovaries, that it's become such a problem. Is that kind of the extreme, I guess?
It is the extreme. So if you were to look at the treatment guidelines, the final treatment guideline to completely end PMDD is to remove the ovaries. It's kind of the last resort if none of the other treatments work. So if chemical menopause doesn't work, chemical menopause could be continuous birth control, or there's needles that are available, such as Lupron, which it shuts down the ovaries and puts you into chemical menopause. So if those things tend to not work, or actually sometimes they can work, but there are people that still choose, make the decision to remove the ovaries because when you remove the ovaries, you're removing the hormone fluctuations. That said, there is possibility that there could still be hormone fluctuations because there are people that have had their ovaries removed that, went through the surgical process and still have what they feel is PMDD type symptoms. It's not actually PMDD because you have had the ovaries removed, so that fluctuation is gone. However, if you're doing add back hormone replacement therapy, and other fluctuations can take place as well, and there's more hormones than just what your ovaries produce. So so there could, there are still possibilities. I think the thing with the surgery is the relief, because you no longer have it every single month. I know for myself, just as an example, I have had surgery. I had surgery 2 years ago, and I actually had everything removed. And I'm doing very well, do not suffer monthly like I used to. Of course, there's been blips because, sometimes there might be something that happens with the hormone replacement therapy, or, different things stressors can happen in your life that can cause rise and falls and different things within your body. Because again, it's very complex because of the brain. But, there's nothing is ever perfect. There's always going to be stressors. There's always going to be something. So I think it just basically makes it a lot more manageable. So removal of the ovaries makes life a lot more manageable. It's certainly been life-changing for me, for sure. And it's definitely been a positive life-changing experience going through the surgery. My life is definitely better. Everything about my life is better. I don't have to worry about the monthly fluctuations and the dealing with planning my life around a monthly schedule and, all those things. Not promoting surgery whatsoever, because I actually was not given the surgery for PMDD specifically, but it was just kind of an added bonus, I guess, for me personally. But there are people that have opted for the surgery instead of going through all the other treatments. And there's people that go through all the other treatments and decide not to have surgery as well. So it's definitely a personal decision.
So the hormones they give you in hormone replacement therapy, is it that doesn't affect your brain like the normal?
Yeah, it certainly. Yes,
it does? Okay.
It certainly does. But, and there are people that have had the surgery that have opted to take no hormones because they are, they're ultra sensitive and they're scared, or they don't want to take the hormone replacement therapy and go through those fluctuations with that. But there are other people that have done very well on with estrogen replacement. Again, it kind of becomes individualized, just like the PMDD treatment. It's different things work for different people. So some people might opt to take estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, or any combination of them. Some people just opt to only take estrogen after surgery, just to keep the hot flashes away and the possibility of, bone density issues and stuff like that. So especially if you're younger, if you're closer to natural menopausal age, it's not as big a deal. But we have had patients as young as 20 that have come to us, that have talked to us about having surgery, have had surgery. And, the concern for them is obviously you want them to go on hormone replacement because you don't want them to end up with, early stages of osteoporosis and, other things that can happen from not having estrogen. So there's pros and cons to everything, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, it's like everything else, it's individualized.
Absolutely.
Now, I wouldn't mind talking about relationships and trying to deal with PMDD.
Okay.
Are you married? Have a husband or a spouse? Or
I have a spouse. Yes, I do. It's not my, how do I say this now without sounding ridiculous? So
now I'm curious.
I have an ex-husband. And I have 2 kids with my ex-husband. Yeah, I was married for 15 years, and obviously it was rough. It was tough on the marital relationship. It was tough being a mom of 2 kids. I also have a child on the autism spectrum, so that added some stress to the situation. So, it takes its toll on relationships. Absolutely. Again, though, I think everybody is so different and everything is so different. We've had some of the most amazing partners and parents and caregivers come through the peer support program that have, completely supported their significant other or their child that has been diagnosed, and, things have gone okay. And then we've had other instances where we've had parents come at their wits' end, or partners come at their wits' end and say, I can't deal with this, I can't do this. Again, support and educating yourself and open communication are really, really, really key. There's a really good book out there on PMDD and relationships. There's also some really great resources on the website for dealing with relationships. But yeah, it's definitely hard, especially people with more severe cases. We've heard stories of violence and stories of people being completely introverted and not even really speaking much to their partners. So you can really have different extremes for sure. It depends on how open you are, I guess. My partner and I now, he is absolutely amazing. And he was with me through the whole surgical process and was very supportive, always supported me. And he knew we had very open communication. We had a calendar. I would look at it, or I would, even give him I would send him a text if he was at work, and I'd say, just letting you know that my time is coming. And so the next couple of days I might be teary, or I might not be, doing very well, blah, 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 blah. So, he was always prepared, but we kept the communication open. If I was crying, if he walked in and found me in the bedroom crying, he didn't ask me why I was crying, because he knew that I didn't know myself why I was crying, that it was just my body was just reacting to its own hormones, and there was absolutely nothing he could do to help me at that time. So, right. So I definitely recommend communicating with your partner and, educating them, because they don't know, they tell them what works for you. They don't necessarily know. So if you have specific things that are helpful for you or work for you, then communicate that with your partner and try to work together. And it definitely will work a lot easier that way.
Yeah. Imagine it. I mean, I don't want to say it's tough for men, but it's probably because it's not a well-known thing. It's like, I wonder how many men are just like, oh, she's just on a reg and she's just being a bee. They don't actually take this diagnosis seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we also see that all the time within the Facebook groups. There is a partner Facebook group as well that we are involved with, and we see it all the time. We've had people come on there that I can't deal with this anymore. I can't deal with the once a month, blah, blah, blah. And then we've had other partners that have been like, I feel so bad for her. I just want to help her, stuff like that. We've had same-sex relationships as well, not just male and female relationships, but we've had same-sex relationships where it's been the same. We've had, partners come and say exact same things and they both have cycles. So, things can be very different, but I mean, it's a lot.
I mean, I don't have PMDD, but I'm a recovering addict. I've been suicidal. I've been in the psych ward. I've had, anxiety, depression, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine what my wife has to go through with all that stuff. And
yeah, and
it's not scheduled, right?
Yeah, and you do have lived experiences, and some of those lived experiences are, some of these skills that you probably learned to make yourself better would also work towards helping her make herself better, or, try to at least ease things up a little bit. You're not coming, you have experience in areas where, you're not coming in and you're not coming in as a total blind jerk and just being like, just suck it up, or how bad could it be? It's only once a month or whatever. Like, know yourself how difficult it is to go through an addiction and go through the mental health system and all that stuff. So you would have somewhat of an understanding and patience, which anybody with an addiction, as far as I'm concerned, have the best patience ever, because you have to be able to live one day at a time.
Right. Yeah.
And a lot of that, you can relate a lot of that to PMDD actually. So it's living 1 minute at a time when you're in it.
Yeah. Is there some comfort in PMDD that this is like, okay, in a week's time, like it's pretty much, there is a schedule somewhat, like, there's light at the end of the tunnel, or is it when you're in it, you're just in it and there's no seeing the end of it?
I think I think it definitely depends on the individual. We've had people that are like, it's only for a week, or it's only for a few days, or it's only for a week and I will be better next week. And we've had other people that, they get the severity of symptoms are unpredictable, and, every month might be different. We've had lots of patients that have told us that I did great this month. I don't understand. Maybe I don't even have PMDD.
Right,
and then the next month they're there and they're a mess, and they're, feeling suicidal, and they don't know what they're going to do, or they, things like that. So it's again, probably why it's difficult to diagnose, because it's, it fluctuates as well. There's times of the year that you might be worse, and there's some months you might be worse, some months you might be better. So it's not predictable. It seems like it's predictable because you think, oh, she has it once a month, but then you have to factor in other illnesses as well, because we have a lot of patients that have come to us that have PCOS or endometriosis, adenomyosis, different disorders like that. And so their periods tend to be unpredictable. It might not be once a month. Some people might get 2 periods a month, or some people might get, 1 period every 6 months or whatever. So it seems like it would be predictable. And, the ideal patient would be the predictable every single month patient. But again, that's not reality for all patients by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
So that certainly makes it difficult.
Do you find there's a lot of people that are double diagnosed with another mental disorder?
Yeah, we do see a lot of dual diagnosis. We see a lot of people that have come, a lot of people have talked to us about, having past trauma, PTSD or complex PTSD, a lot of people with addictions, some people getting addictions because that's their way of coping with dealing with this, because they're not sure how else to do it, especially if they're not getting help. Sometimes they will turn to addiction. We have people that have come to us and have talked about having cravings for specific substances such as alcohol, which, interestingly enough, I found out that there is some form of correlation, and there's a whole study that goes with that, and that's being studied more as well. So I'm not a doctor, so I don't even want to get into all that. But there's people with eating disorders, that have come to us and talked about how all their symptoms are exacerbated around their cycle. So the majority of patients tend to have more than one diagnosis, for sure.
Right. That seems to be the way in any kind of mental disorder.
Yeah, actually. I think so. Yeah, it's a lot of things are connected too. I mean, yeah, when you look at it, when you look at the full picture and you look at when you look at the DSM, you can see that there is a lot of correlation with a lot of different disorders. So, anxiety and depression, usually they say if you have one, you have the other, and, stuff like that. So it might not necessarily be true, but a lot of those things tend to be diagnosed together. So same thing with PMDD, the majority of patients, I don't know too many patients, to be honest with you, that only have PMDD. I know very few. I know many that have, mast cell activation syndrome or complex PTSD, anxiety and depression, addictions, stuff like that. So, and again, though, all those diagnoses get exacerbated by one's menstrual cycle. So it would only make sense to have, to possibly have more than one.
Now, my friend who has PMDD, she quite often shows me memes. And like most things, humor kind of helps with this stuff.
Yes.
Are you a member of any of those kind of meme Facebook pages or anything?
Well, no, I am not. I've seen lots of memes, and I know there is a group out there, a PMDD meme group, and I guess being Canadian, that's one of the things that we tend to do is humor. I use humor for a lot, and I think humor definitely gets me through. And if you talk to anybody on my team or anybody that knows me on a personal level, they would tell you that I'm funny, or I tend to be funny, stuff like that. So memes is definitely something I would use. What I've learned through this whole process is to err on the side of caution, because people tend to get very offended very quickly. And I think being in this role, I have to be very cautious on how I present things. And I certainly wouldn't, I've had people send me memes all the time. I had one, I can't even remember what it was. It was ridiculous, but it was like me in my PMDD phase, and it showed like a person crying. And then there was another one, me out of my PMDD phase, and she looked like she was at a party and stuff like that. And, you get this, you might have a chuckle or you might, but then, when you think of the seriousness, you're like, yeah, okay, it's not really funny. And, you almost get offended and stuff like that. So a lot of sensitive souls, a lot of PMDD patients are very sensitive, and, probably some of the most amazing souls that I've met in my lifetime. But one of the things that I've really noticed is a lot of sensitivity, and a lot of people just, do not appreciate memes and jokes and things like that. So I definitely try to avoid some of those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially if they're in this, in the middle of the shit, and it can be very sensitive. I know what I was going to ask you before, is how important is diet? Because again, the inflammation thing, the possible inflammation thing, connection, and what kind of foods and
so. Obviously, dietary changes, again, varies from person to person, but we've had a lot of people that have done the Mediterranean diet, the FODMAP diet, a lot of people have gone dairy and gluten-free because there's obviously a huge correlation with dairy and inflammation. You can anybody can Google that and read up on it. But we've had a lot of patients that have talked about, going dairy-free and finding relief of some symptoms, but we've had others that have said, no, they didn't find any difference. And same with gluten, et cetera. Obviously, diet and exercise is going to help anybody, because that's one of the top recommended things for any mental illness is diet and exercise. So, eating appropriately, moderation, making sure you get, the right amount of nutrients and vitamins that you're supposed to be getting every day, avoiding specific things like alcohol, et cetera, et cetera. So pretty much typically the same as most illnesses, But again, we've had some people that have come back with great success stories saying they stopped eating gluten and dairy and they're doing great, and they stopped with caffeine and they found a huge difference. And then again, other people that have come back and said made no difference. So, and obviously exercise is going to help, because everybody knows that when you exercise, your serotonin raises and you start to feel better. So that's why one of the biggest reasons why they recommend exercise for any disorder. So nothing more, I don't think, than anything else.
Right.
Nothing proven, I guess. There's no, they're starting to look at studies and starting to do studies on those things, but there's no actual scientific evidence-based studies at this time on the benefits of diet and exercise. So that's one of the things that we're actually hoping will be done in the future.
So what's the most important thing you want someone to know about PMDD, or if someone who's suspecting they have it?
If you suspect that you have PMDD, the number one thing that I always recommend is tracking your symptoms, every symptom right down to, how you're feeling, what's going on. Is there added stress that would be wearing on you that could be exacerbating your symptoms, et cetera. So I highly recommend the tracking app, or again, you can go to the website and print off a printable version and keep track of those symptoms. Definitely speaking with your clinician. If your clinician is not educated to the disorder, we have resources on the website that you can take with you to present to them, and they can also reach out to the clinical advisory committee and learn more about the disorder as well through the website. So, and again, with the new education community that's going to be starting in the fall, I think now that more people are starting to talk about it and there's more studies starting to take place, et cetera, I think that the education factor is just an added benefit. People are starting to talk about this. People are, we're talking about it right now. And this is something last year or a couple of years ago that I've never talked about this to anybody, especially in Canada, because people just don't tend to listen to me, or people will ask me what I do and I'll tell them and they just look at me blank faced because they don't even know what PMDD is. So I'll just say, well, I just talk about periods and mental health all day. So, so I guess it just I went off the rails there. Don't even have any idea where I went there, but anyways.
That's fine.
You can delete that part out. You can edit that out.
I'll just, what's it called? Where you put the volume slowly down and just fade out. That's
Fade it.
Is there anything I missed that you really want to talk about? That
Let me just.
I did pretty good, right?
You did. You did. The website our website is like ridiculously robust in information, and our FAQ is like the amazing. We have tons and tons and tons of FAQ. We work every single day on that, and it's all evidence based. So everything on our website and everything that we use is scientific evidence based. So backed by science,
not religion.
Yeah, exactly. We've had people try that too, though.
Really?
we get that too. We get all kinds of stuff. Like, you would be surprised. I could tell you some dandy stories.
I believe it, man.
But probably not good for on air. Yeah.
What's the health or the mental health system like in Nova Scotia? Is it, would you say, lacking?
Oh, good God, yes. What's it like out there? Yeah, it's a disaster here. We are a mess.
It's a mess here too.
Yeah, it's a mess. I think it's a mess across the country, but certain parts of the country are there's more poverty than other parts of the country, and I mean, it is what it is. Right now, we're in a pandemic, so of course the mental health system is going to be suffering because we're dealing with a pandemic. So, mental health is not. It is getting better. I shouldn't say that. I mean, with peer support, the profession of peer support is growing leaps and bounds. There's certification now that people can take that, gives them specific skills, and, digital peer support, et cetera, is really growing. And helplines, you're seeing more helplines and more resources every single day out there. There's COVID helplines in every province, and every country has a COVID helpline and stuff like that. So, I think everybody's really trying, but again, there's only so much finances to go around, and I think everybody's doing the best that they can. But as for here, like, the mental health system it's in crisis, probably the same as everywhere else in the country. I mean, people fall through the cracks every single day, and there's really not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it.
Thanks again, Sandi, for that original interview and for, letting me play it again, I guess. Anyway, thanks, Sandi, for all the information and for everything you do for women and women's health and women's mental health. Don't forget, January 4th, there'll be new episodes of, a brand new thing called Mental Health Headline Hot Takes with Nick and Todd. And on January 7th, new episodes of Bunny Hugs and Mental Health will be out. Please rate and review. Follow me on Instagram, Bunny Hugs Podcast. Have a happy new year. And please remember to make your beds and take your meds. Bye.